Shouts out to my people. Shouts out to my people. Sending love, positivity, and good vibes to my people, man. I hope you guys are doing good today. I'm doing great. Today's topic I wanted to speak on today is you got to be open minded. You have to be open minded and even diverse. So, the reason why I wanted to bring up this topic today is because I feel like with me being open minded, with me, I have a natural devil's advocate kind of perspective through life. I always try to look at the glass half full and half empty. I don't like to just look at things one way. I like to put myself in other people's shoes. I like to look at different scenarios. I feel like that's the reason why I like current events, podcasts, news, because I like to know how things happen, why things happen, when they happen. Um, I like to try to predict and put myself in. A lot of the times when I do this, I'm right in a lot of instances. Not all the time, but when I put myself in other people's shoes, I can kind of see the outcomes of what could happen, what did happen, or how that person felt. So I always naturally have had a devil's advocate type of personality. So, you know, when my whole life changed was after fifth grade year, going into the sixth grade. I want to say it was the sixth grade. My dad got remarried. He met this woman. Her name was Debbie, and they got married, and we ended up moving in. Not moving in because we had to move into a bigger house, but we ended up moving to the town that they lived in, and that completely changed my life and made me who I am today. And I would never take that away from me because that's what built me. So when we made that move, I was super scared. When you're leaving everything that you know, the people you grow up with, the environment, and as a kid, it can feel very frightening, scary, not knowing, oh, am I going to make friends? How are my teachers going to treat me? There's so many questions that run through your mind. Like, am I going to be okay? Because I already know I'm thriving. I already know I have, um, little girls that I talk to. I got friends that are like brothers at this point that we've grown up with. And just all the way across the board. My dad was the assistant principal. My dad was the assistant principal and he was the head coach at the school. So, I had it made. I could go because my dad was obviously at the high school. So, the kids would get off the elementary and the middle school. We would get out before the high school would get out. That's something that the world kind of switched. Now the middle schoolers, the high schoolers get out now sooner so they can go pick up or make sure that their siblings, cousins, whatever the case may be, are okay. But back in the day, I used to get out a couple hours before the high school would get out. So I would go into other teachers' classrooms that I liked. They would have candy for. I would sit in the back of their classroom. Um, I would grab the keys from my dad and go to the basketball gym and shoot hours until he got out. And then, he was the basketball coach. So, that's how I got sweet at basketball. I came out with the basketball in my hand, but 2 hours before school would even let out, I'll be hooping. Then I have to wait until practice started, and I would be there until practice ended. So I was born, I was a dog when it came to basketball. And I think other thoughts like that, like how good would I have been if I would have just stayed and crafted and played with the kids that I grew up with. Funny thing about that is going from the all black school to an all white school, I went from all we did was hoop. All we did was identify ourselves as jocks, athletes. So going from that all black school to an all white school, all the black people I kicked it with, all we did was play basketball. Basketball, 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 basketball. When I made that move, these kids really they played basketball, but they weren't into basketball like that. Like at the old school I went to, you would really lock in on one sport. So either you were a basketball player or you're a football player. You might play both, but you weren't really, it was one sport that you just eat, lived, and breathed. That was basketball. When we made that move, a lot of kids weren't playing basketball. So I adapted and had to see what they like to do. They like to play football. So that's why I feel like, that's how I feel like I'm stocky and strong and like to work out. I don't think that I would be this stature. I don't think I would be in the gym if it wasn't for that change. I feel like I wouldn't have these tattoos. I wouldn't be muscular. But with that changed, it allowed me to know who I really am. Sometimes when you never leave your environment and you're always around the same people and you lose yourself in that identity. And that's the reason why I wanted to bring up being open-minded and being diverse, because I was the black kid that played sports. And a lot of people looked at me like, who's this black dude? I had to win these white people over. When I first met my white friends, I thought they all looked the same. It was a Jeff, one of my childhood homies. He was 6 foot tall, blonde hair, blue eyes. Zach was 5'5", dark hair, dark eyes. But when I first, laid eyes on, I thought all people looked the same. And now I can see how, that stereotype. We say all Asians look the same. We say all. It's because we're not used to being around these types of people. A lot of white people may rightfully think that all black people look the same until that they get comfortable. Then you can, oh yeah, I know so I'm ranting a little bit, but I'm trying to break down to you guys like the step by step of what I had to go through. I was scared. I didn't want to move. We ended up moving, and it's something like I said that I would never change about who I am. I felt like I was lost as that black kid in a white school. I felt like I became a people pleaser in a sense. I, adapted these ideologies and, I would say that I became a little whitewashed. Going from being in an all black community to an all white community, I went from being super pro black, knowing nothing but black people, to now Now the people I'm around, they're white, but they're my friends. I'm starting to adapt in this environment. What a lot of people don't do, and that is the main thing that I wanted to like speak on. A lot of the times when you cross over to the other side, right? A lot of other people don't adapt. They don't try to change or learn, or that's the main thing that I champion myself in that move, is that I was open-minded and was willing to experience the experience. I was willing to, take in their culture, their mindsets, how they moved. And I wanted to be the worst thing that I hate, especially growing up, was I would always get this backhanded compliment. And white people will always say to me, I don't like black people, but you, I like you. And that kind of fucked with my psyche a little bit because, it's like, it's almost like I said, it's a backhanded compliment. They say that, and you may think, before I would be like, oh, that's kind of nice for them to say. But then, growing more, it's like there are people like me. Not all black people are just, steal and now granted, niggas can be some shit. Let's not, I'm the one that speaks the truth. The most losses I took, the most shit I've been through was from people that look like me. Does that mean that I'm whitewashed and I don't like black people? No, I'm speaking my truth. I'm speaking my experience because I feel like that's all we can go off of. Do I love my people? I love my people. I will always stand with my people. I want the best for my people. But I'd be a damn lie to say that, there's a lot of things that we need to work on. We do need to come together and build and not tear each other down. That's some of the things that I did learn about white people that I adapted. You know, kudos to my pops. He instilled a mindset in me that, it's cool to have fun, live and do your thing, but what are you doing for the next generation? My dad stood on that and he was a great example. Anything that we needed, he was there. He was a great father, he was just a stand-up guy. And I wanted to adapt that into my lifestyle, no matter what. I wanted to be somebody where, not everybody's gonna like you. But people know, do you mean well? I never wanted to leave a bad taste in anybody's mouth. So, growing up, I played sports. I dated white girls. Eventually, if that's all you were, I would get so much slack for talking to white girls. That's that's the only people for the most part around. There's 90% of white girls around me. Now, you're going to they're who I'm around. So now I'm talking to white girls, dating white girls. Um and it just goes into the whole thing of what I'm saying. Being open-minded, being able to cross the railroad tracks and be diverse and be open-minded and be able to step in other people's cultures, be able to step in other people's environments in order to dissect who they are. That is one of the best experiences that I've ever had. And I feel like, I lost my identity in the move at first, right? Because growing up, if you don't know who you are, then you're going to look around and It's almost as if the example that I use on how I felt is almost like living like you don't know who your parent is, in a sense. It's important. It impacts who you are, but if you don't know, you just don't know, and that can be a downside. I use that as a metaphor. When you're growing up and you're looking around and all your friends is white, now you're growing accustomed to their thoughts, their beliefs, and I would say I became a little whitewashed. Rightfully so, because that was the environment I was in. But then, I get out of high school and now I'm in college. I'm, meeting other women. I'm meeting other people and friends, and I go play college football, and just all the experiences I would say, kind of brought me back from across the tracks. People will judge you off of your experiences and what you go through, but I didn't have any control. I didn't. I wasn't gonna tell my dad not to get married, and I couldn't pay rent. I couldn't live in Trotwood by myself. But a lot of people, oh, he's whitewashed or he's this and he's that. But I think that me being who I am, being able to go across the tracks and talk to these people and go back over here and relate, with these people, being diverse, being able to see people as humans and not as a color has completely helped me get through so many doors. Not everybody who's going to be a blessing in your life is going to look like you. And a lot of people who do look like you, a lot of the times, are the people who are going to attack you and hurt you and cause problems and issues in your life. I have to say this. I feel like I have to. There's good white people. There's good black people. There's good and bad of anything. It's really about their morals, character, their values, their outlook on life. What's their why? But getting back to the topic, being open minded, being able to adapt. I had dreads. I got tattoos now. I stick out like a sore thumb. I'm buff. I But the reason why I can maneuver in these rooms, the reason why I can, speak to the cops and get out of situations that could possibly become deadly is because I know how to use my mouthpiece. I know how to move and maneuver and how to be cooperative and how to use manners and respect. Those things go a long way. Being diverse, being open minded is the best attribute that I have. And I challenge you, if you have, if you've only been through certain experiences in life and only been in, I stay in this town and I only talk to these people, and step outside the box. It's time to, get your passport. It's time to, you ain't even got to get your passport yet. It's time to travel. It's time to get out of the city, go to a different city, get out the state, get out the country, meet new people, say hi, talk, be friendly, have a smile on your face, be able to start a conversation, be able to network. And, I have my own personal brand. So be able to uh sell and don't be scared to. That's what taught me all these things that I went through in life. Yeah, the workforce help and certain things, but I always know as long as I treat people good, first and foremost, God is always going to make sure I have a way. But as long as I treat people good, people are going to return that energy back. Not all the time, but when it comes to business, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to love, when it comes to, your career and making money and, like I said, networking. Being open minded and having that diversity is very important. And it will get you through doors that, doors you would never know that were there. The people in my life that affect and help me and push me and strive me, and we ain't perfect. We all ain't perfect. There's something we all a trip in some way, way, shape, or form. But what I realized is you gotta know the relationships that are worth. Not everybody is going to be the same, look the same as you. Not everybody is going to be the homie that I kick it with. I'll be around the most. He's dang near 7 foot tall. I'm short. There's other people, white. I'm black. I know Chaldeans. I know Iraqis. I know so many people that impact my baby mom's Mexican kids, black, white, Mexican. You know, love doesn't come in one shape, one color, one shade, one color. The people who God is coming in your life to bless you, a lot of the times it's not going to be who you expect. It's going to be who you at least expect. So I'm not going to rant too long on this one. I just really wanted to break down how important, being open minded and not judging people off of a skin tone. Judge people off their mindsets. Judge people off of their intentions. And like I said, morals, character, and value. Look at Pop the Balloon Challenge. I find love. The whole thing is just based up off of the image. Granted, we can't help who we attracted to. And yes, if you like a certain kind of thing, then you know what I'm saying. I'm not saying you can't like a specific skin color, but I'm saying don't be so cliche. Like I'm pro black, but I see what's going on, and we have to realize, y'all, they trying to divide us. That's the biggest thing that and I'm gonna get off after this point, but that's the biggest thing that I've realized. There's so many few of us that have been, on both sides of the track that they're able to attack. They're able to attack us through race. It's white versus black. George Floyd or Charlie Kirk. And we just sit there and type and get. I lived it. Y'all can stay on the internet and go back. I've lived it. I've experienced it. So, I look at that shit and I almost laugh about it. If you only stayed in, and that's why I think to myself, if I would have only stayed in this environment, and I'm not attacking those people who only stayed in that environment because that is their experience and that is their truth. And I respect that and I give them that space to believe in what they believe. Like I said, I'm pro black. At the end of the day, I'm fighting till the wheels fall off. right or wrong. But we have to understand there's a group of people over here that feels the same way about how they feel and their beliefs. And they ain't wrong for that. They're not wrong for that. We should have the space to be able to believe in what we believe in, but more than anything, the message that I want to give to you guys today. Yes, it's about having an open mind, being diverse, but what are you doing to step up outside the box? To step outside of, you know, your beliefs. You know, we should all be pushing our beliefs, our religions. We should be challenging these things. Politics. Because if you only stay on one side of the track, you're more influenced. And that's what they don't want. They don't want people in the middle to be like, oh, well, I can. And I laugh, like I said, more than anything, I laugh because I lived it. I I'm obviously I'm black. Grew up, I'm pro black. I'm with my people. I see myself dating and having a black woman as my wife, but I'm not in the same boat. I'm not like what's his name, Dr. Umar Johnson, where it's like you can't talk to the white snow bunnies, and that's not my experience. Now I just want somebody who I can click with. I'm not going to sit here and chase people off of the stigmas of what everybody else believes, because that is the trap. So I love you guys. It's positivity, good vibes. I hope you guys enjoyed the topic today. Man, step outside the box. Meet new people. Talk to different people, because you never know. That one person that you never opened up to, you never talked to, you walked past, you didn't think that they had anything to offer. That might be your biggest blessing. And it has been a lot of the cases in my life. So, love you guys. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. We out.